Hi, folks. It's Emma Grant here from Heartfelt Change. Welcome to anyone who is joining me live, and welcome to those of you who are listening on Open FM, our local radio station. My name is Emma Grant and my company is Heartfelt Change. I work with many different people, inspiring them to sort of come to terms with their lives, to become more aware of themselves in their moment. And I find personally that kind of nurturing approach leads people to being able to sit more happily in their lives, to build their awareness, to be more honest with themselves, and improves relationships with yourself and with those around you. So that's kind of what I do. And on these live streams, and on the Open FM programs, I'm just sort of talking about various topics. So if there's anything that you're particularly interested in, any area of stress management or mental health or personal development, then drop me a line and let me know what you might be interested in. So we're in the midst of a series on attitudes and what attitudes you have. The last couple of sessions I've been looking at resentments, and I think sort of on reflection for this topic of attitudes, there's we can build up a sense ourself of what the good attitudes are to have and what the bad attitudes are to have. And I suppose what I'm going to be particularly looking at today is how sometimes what we perceive of as being a sort of the positive attitude is actually us still just being in our head with our emotions, and we're not actually finding that middle ground of actually just allowing ourselves to feel and meet the emotions that we're experiencing. Because as I've said before, your emotions are there to move you from one place to the next. So okay, before I go any further, it's nice to hear from folks. So if there's anyone watching live or on replay, if you'd like to, for those of you who are watching live and on replay, then drop me a wee note in the chat just to say who you are and where you're from. It's always good to see or hear where folk are from, and then I can respond to you or any questions you might be interested in asking as we go through, as long as I can multitask and hold looking at the comments as well as chatting away. And for those of you who are listening on Open FM, I'm delighted that you're taking the time out in what I'm sure is a busy day to listen in. And you can always reach out and contact me through Facebook page or on my website, www.heartfeltchange.co.uk. So looking at attitudes. Now, I've said that we sometimes say that one attitude is good and one attitude is bad, and we sort of quite often have, one person may present an attitude in one way and the other person, I would say, presents it in another. So an example of that would be we may flip from blaming others for perceived stress, anxiety, fear, whatever it is, to blaming ourselves. And with that, you're still holding you're holding a gun, aren't you? You're holding a negativity gun, and you're either pointing it at someone else or you're turning around and pointing it at yourself. So we quite often have these flips in in how we look at things. But what I would say is that the good thing to do, or what to strive to do, is to try and find that middle ground where you're actually meeting your emotion and not, either sort of external or internalizing. So I've just got a wee hello from Claire, who is in Greece. How amazing. I think she's on a course herself, and she managed to hook up with a course that was in Greece, which is pretty good. I'm about to offer some meditations in Oban, which possibly isn't quite as sunny as Greece. So nice to hear from you, Claire. I'm honoured that you find time in amongst what else you're doing in Greece to come and clock in here. So the attitude that I was particularly going to look at today was self-pity. The reason I was kind of wanting to look at that is because I think it's a really, really good example of where, people kind of know in theory that self-pity is maybe not the most positive of reactions to have, although we can all fall into it at times. But I think what we do, or certainly for myself, and I've talked about this before, what I do is I kind of almost militantly go against self-pity. And what I actually flip to is abandoning myself in my militant desire to not be self-pitying. I actually ignore, or certainly did this more in the past, not so much these days, but I ignore what it is that I'm feeling, and I'm slapping on a face of positivity, a face of, I will survive, I'll be okay. And there's times where this serves you really, really well. And, I've spoken about that before, where, in my childhood, that kind of, militant, I'm not going to get sucked into, I'm not going to fall into sort of a sense of despair, a sense of self-pity. That works really well. And if you're someone who falls into self-pity, or you're someone who falls into the sort of militant non-self-pity, then if this is resonating with you, then, let me know in the chat. And certainly for me in the past, I've been, I would have judged that feeling self-pity was bad, was unhealthy, and putting a positive spin on things was healthy. So now I'm sort of possibly being slightly more subtle in my approach, and slightly more aware of what actually feels good and is beneficial for me. And what I would say now is that path of the militant self-pity has actually led me down a path of an arrogance of, I can do everything on my own, I will stand on my own, I will trust no one else. And in my personal life, I've certainly unwrapped this story a fair bit. But it's really interesting to me how, as we bring more and more awareness to ourselves on our journey, we can pick up different layers at which the perceptions that we have, or the awarenesses that we have, are still affecting our lives. So I'm at the stage in my journey where I'm just like, pay attention, and in as many moments as I can, just pay attention to what I'm doing, what attitude am I bringing, what perception am I bringing of myself or the situation from the past or from last week or whatever it is. Just pay attention. So I had this recent realization that, so I've worked self-employed, right? I've worked self-employed most of my life, all my life pretty much. And I have done that, or on a surface level, I have done that from the point of view of it being a positive thing because of the independence it's given me, the flexibility with hours, which really it has done from the point of view of raising 4 kids and being able to be flexible. But I've also done it from the point of view of, when I was sort of sinking into it a little bit deeper, done it from the point of view of, I'm the only one that's going to get this right. If I rely on someone else, they might let me down. So, and that's where the flip of the self-pity comes in. So I'm not wallowing in self-pity, but I've reversed that into, like I said, this sort of arrogant belief of I'm the only one that I can trust. Behind that on a personal level, there stands the, if I don't trust others and don't let them in and don't rely on anyone else, then I'm also not going to get hurt. That's kind of more in the personal arena. But my recent revelation was that this thinking that I've had around the choices to be self-employed being wholly based on a sort of a positive attitude, I actually sort of uncovered it slightly as being coming from that point of view of not trusting someone. And where that has left me in my business is that I end up doing everything myself. It's like I have to be the one that does the website. I have to be the one that designs the leaflet, designs the business card, that makes up the videos, that does this, does that. And there's obviously some of the business stuff which I absolutely do want to do. Like I'm not going to get someone else to do this interaction for me, because my business is very much based around how my energy and how I work with people. But there's a lot of stuff that I could be asking other people to support me with. But that flip against self-pity where I'm sort of denying the need for anyone else, has led me into this situation of actually shooting myself in the foot for not getting support for business stuff. So this week I was putting a shout out for folk who could maybe help me with, paid support for designing, doing some design work and doing some video editing work. So, it's a real sort of lifting sensation when you kind of notice how an attitude from the past is literally, has been affecting all my work life and still, has been affecting me, to this day. So delving a little bit more into the notion of what the sort of the flip is on that self-pity. Here we go. I've got some more comments. I'll just check in with folks. So, Joy Cameron is clocking in. She's saying she said it sounds as if you can see into my head and that this resonates. Honestly, I can't see into your head. Maybe I can see into your heart a wee bit, but not your head. Claire, that's funny. Claire has said she's literally just said to herself, beep, I will sort this problem out by myself. So it sounds like it's resonating. This idea is resonating with a couple of folk. So just be aware. Maybe Claire, maybe it is a point where it is a problem that you have to sort out yourself. But that's the joy of the awareness, isn't it? There's not a this is right, this is wrong. But there's a joy in if you bring an awareness to how you're making your decisions. That's how you can figure out whether they're actually serving you well, whether your attitude of independence is serving you well in this moment, or whether actually, get over yourself. You might actually, do better by inviting others into your life. And you know what? If something goes wrong, it goes wrong. It's not the end of the world. And behind that statement is the trust that things are going to work out. and things may not work out how you think they should work out, but you know what? Things will work out. So the other thing of self-pity that I really kind of want to look at a wee bit is the opposite of self-pity for a lot of people is positive thinking. And I was chatting about this with a friend recently, and it's certainly something that comes up with clients a lot, that sort of sense of, I just need to pull my socks up. I just need to kind of almost reprogram my brain and think positively about things. And this will, deal with my anxiety. This will deal with my fears, whatever it is. Now, don't get me wrong. I think if anyone's sort of aware of kind of the notion of the growth mindset, I think there's a lot to be said for the language that we are using. So if we're continually describing something as, it's hard, it's difficult, it's whatever, then that's the pathway that we are building up in our heads. That's the association that we're building up. So there is absolutely something to be said about use of positive language, or looking at things with a cup half full attitude rather than the cup half empty. But I think the flip that I'm talking about is when you go from self-pity into the abandonment of yourself in that, and only being able to think positively about things. And the way I described this to a friend recently is like the positive thinking is like you've repainted your house walls are maybe looking all kind of grimy and grey on the outside and a bit sort of sad and uncared for. And you come along and you paint the outside of your house. So on the face of it, you are presenting the positive face. You are presenting, the positive outlook. But on the inside, you've not actually dealt with whatever it was that was making the house grey. So you've still got the smoke coming from the inside, all the dust coming from the cushions that have never been sort of taken outside and walloped around with a carpet brush. I'm not saying you have to wallop yourself around with a carpet brush, but yeah, I hope you sort of follow that kind of metaphor. So there's a middle ground. There's a middle ground to all this, and it's. Some of you may be thinking, what's the point of all this chat? What's the point of all this ruminating? Where does it get us to? And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time in their heads. Now, when I say that you spend a lot of time in your heads, I don't mean like I've spent time in my head today when I was planning a PR campaign for one of the charities I work for. So I'm doing project management, and I'm listing activities that need to take place. Now that's me being in my head, isn't it? What I'm talking about is as a sort of less than useful way of being in your head is when you are sitting in your head with your emotions and your emotional response to things, and you're going round and round and round and falling into self-pity, or falling into the sort of I must think positively, or whatever it is that you're falling into. So self-pity is a prime example of when we are sitting in our heads in a historical moment, rather than sitting in the present moment now. Our actual emotions in the moment are quite fleeting. If you think back to when you were a kid, or if you've got any kids around you that you can observe, a kid will have an experience, will have the emotions around that experience, and then 2 minutes later they're done with it. and it's quite often the parents or the teacher or the aunties or uncles or carers around them that are still holding on to whatever trauma around a situation. But the kid's had its emotion and it's done with it. Unless they are surrounded by people who are sort of feeding their emotions. So my point to all this is that your actual emotions in the moment are quite fleeting. They're not sustained for very long, and they may well come back round. But they tend to be, if you're actually noticing it and you're not sort of feeding it in your head, they tend to actually be quite fleeting. So if you're feeling anxious, then that feeling of anxiety can come up for sure, but it doesn't actually stay with you for very long, unless you are spending time in your head, either telling yourself how bad it all is, or telling yourself that you shouldn't be feeling it. Either one of those is a surefire way of actually feeding that bank of that emotion, feeding the fire of that emotion. So the work that I support people with is helping people to, on the one hand, find that midpoint where you're neither falling into something nor running away from it, because either side is building up in your head the importance of whatever the emotion is, whereas actually just meeting the emotion in the middle and acknowledging it is the best way, in my experience, to burn it off. But we're taught in this society to very much not feel things, to not sit with things. And I would say that by not sitting with it, boy, you're stoking that fire. So the work I do is to support people to sort of find that middle ground, but also just to build that awareness of what you're doing in every moment, what you're doing, what attitude you're bringing to every moment of your life, what's actually happening. What attitudes are you bringing? What's coming up for you? And it's in building up your awareness of yourself in your moments, this moment, that your own personal transformation can exist, can happen. So that's my musings. Those are my musings for the day. Before we end today, just to sort of link those two. One tool that I very much use to sort of build that muscle of awareness is actually when I'm sitting in meditation, or sitting in quiet. And you could say, well, okay, fine, you can be as aware as you want when you take 20 minutes to meditate. It's the transfer of that awareness out into the everyday world is important. And if you're thinking that, absolutely agree with you. But there's times where we almost have to really invest some sort of training time in building up that muscle of awareness, building up that muscle of being able to sort of really stay connected with yourself, feel whatever it is you're feeling, not fall into it or not flee it. And I personally, for myself, meditation is that training ground, and enables me to sort of step into the rest of my day with that sort of sense of being the connected observer. So I just a wee request for folk. I'm going to be starting up I've already got a regular meditation group that goes on Zoom on Tuesdays at 1:00 and Thursdays at 8:00. But I'm very excited to say that I'm actually going to be starting one up in our local, well, I'm in discussion with them, our local community centre at Rockfield in Oban. Claire, I realise this is maybe not quite so useful for you in Greece or when you're back home in England, but anyway, for anyone who's listening more locally, then so I'm negotiating with the Rockfield Centre at the moment. But what I'd love to do is do some in-person nice big circle meditation. And I'm thinking of doing it on Tuesdays right after work, so 5:30 to 6:30, something like that. And then also Fridays, either in the mornings at 10 till 11 or at lunchtime. So if folk are interested in that, then drop me a line, and basically whoever kind of commits to it, it would be on a monthly subscription. Whoever commits to it can help determine what time is gonna suit you. So you can either drop a wee note in the chat, or drop me an email, emma@heartfeltchange.co.uk. So I don't know whether if that's resonated with anyone, then do let me know in the chat. If you're watching on replay, again, thank you for taking the time out of your day. Just do a wee hashtag replay, so I can so I get the pop up and I know you're watching. You've watched it. Not in this live space. And if anyone's got any last things they want to stick in the chat, then you can do that now, just as we're closing. So thank you for joining me. Thank you to those of you who are watching live. Thank you to anyone who's listening on Oban FM, our great wee radio station in Oban, 103.3 FM. And thank you for those of you watching on replay. And if you'd like to hear about anything else that I do, or catch up on other lives that I've done, any other recordings, then you can catch me on www.heartfeltchange.co.uk. And please let me know what you think about the idea of doing live meditation, meeting in a circle. Very excited at the thought of that. Let me know whether you're interested, and what days or times might suit you. Okay, folks, that's it. That's the end for today. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all next Monday. Cheers for now.